Okay, so hey there guys. So today's video is going to be my most disappointing books and reads of 2024. I've been trying to film a lot of like book content of like end of the year kind of wrap ups for you guys, and also, just to share my thoughts, because if I don't do it on here, I'm not gonna be able to do it anywhere else because like literally nobody cares. I don't really have that many friends that read, so this is my way to express my opinion about these books. Before I get into these, just because I didn't like these books doesn't mean you didn't. These are my opinions. We all have different book tastes. We all have different books that we love and books that we don't like, and not every book is everybody's cup of tea. So these are, again, my opinions, and if you don't agree with me, that's fine, but just please don't be mean, because we all have a right to our opinions. So without that being further, and also if you love these books, good for you. I'm so glad you did, but that doesn't mean I did. So let's get into it. So the first book, first and foremost, probably you guys know that I'm going to talk about this. I'm also going to be getting ready to go out. I'm going to see Mufasa with one of my best girlfriends tonight. We're also going to go to Barnes & Noble. It's actually like the first time I'm going to be going to Barnes & Noble in 2025, because I actually do want to pick up a new release that came out today. And I know I won't be able to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it at Target, but I do want to get it at Barnes & Noble. I'm going to exchange another book anyway. And then I also want to pick up A Fire in the Sky, because a lot of people keep on talking about that book, and I'm very intrigued on reading it. So, and then I might pick up The Hobbit as well, because that is on my TBR for this month, because I'm finally going to start my Lord of the Rings journey as well. That's going to be some epic journey, let me tell you. So anyway, so the first and foremost, the most disappointing book that I read of 2024 was Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. What's crazy is that, and I'm going to talk about this book and compare it to the second book that I'm going to talk about in the same way, and I said this in my 2024 reading wrap-up, the fact that I literally read one of my favorite books that I've ever read from Riley Sager before I read Middle of the Night. I think that's why it was so freaking disappointing for me, because this book was just not even just like the worst book I read. This is also the worst book I read because I gave it was the only book I ever gave a 1-star review to. I didn't even want to rate it, but at the same time, I kind of, wanted it to be known how upset I was about it. And actually, this is my most liked review on Goodreads. I have like over 80 likes on this review. So, but after reading The Only One Left and then reading this book, I was just like, what the hell is this? The Only One Left is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. Every time I think about that book, I get a little emotional because it was such a fantastic book. And it was very sad. And I was like, this author like emotionally impacted me so much. So I thought I was going to love this book, and I was so excited for it. But I've never read a thriller that was so damn repetitive and was repeating the same damn phrases over and over and over and over again to the extent of that I feel like he's just kind of treating the reader as they're kind of dumb. And I've kind of felt that way with quite a few adult thrillers this year, not just from Riley Sager, but from some other authors as well, that I feel like with some adult thriller writers, they sometimes treat the reader like they're really dumb. And I also feel like Riley Sager did it with this book in like a mischievous kind of way. And I almost feel like while I was reading it, he was kind of trolling the reader to expect something to happen and then to be so let down and be like, are you fucking kidding me? Like that there was all this buildup for no reason. Okay, my friend said she's already on her way, so I have like 45 minutes still until I have to leave. So anyway, it was just so highly disappointing, and I really feel like he did. A lot of people were commenting that they think that he almost did this on purpose because he's been known to have such a big ego, and I know I don't know him personally and whatever, but he also has, you know, kind of had some controversy with Grady Hendrix, claiming that he coined the title of Final Girls because one of his books is called Final Girls, and one of Grady Hendrix's books is called The Final Girl Support Group. And he says that that was he's copying him, and that was my original phrase, but I also think that Grady Hendrix is just a better writer. So I think that he might be jealous, but also, like, Grady Hendrix is a lot more horror and Riley Sager is more thriller. But also, after reading this book, I swear to God, if I was going to hear Hakuna Matata Dude or Screech, like these stupid, and Middle of the Night literally said one more time repeated in the fucking book, I was going to throw it across the room. I almost wanted to throw it across the room multiple times reading this book. But it took me so long to get through this book, and I'm like, this is a thriller. There shouldn't be any reason why this book is taking me so long to read it. Honestly, The God of the Woods was more interesting and read a lot faster than this one, and that book was like 100 pages longer. But it was just really a huge letdown, and it didn't even feel like I was reading a thriller. It felt like I was just reading something that, because I feel like he thinks that everyone is going to read his books no matter what. So I'm not going to waste any more time on this. I just really did not like this book, and I don't think there's anything redeeming about any of it. And this was kind of my last strike with Riley Sager, because I did enjoy his two. I mean, again, the only one left was his most recent release before that, and I freaking loved that book so much. I compare so many thrillers to that book because it's one of my favorite thrillers ever. So this was pretty bad. And then I kind of started going through a thriller rut after I read this book. I don't know why I didn't clean this brush off yesterday, but I'm literally using black, so it's not like that big of a deal. Okay, and then the next one that was probably my other biggest disappointment of 2024, and honestly, I really just liked this book, and that is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Now, again, I had read my favorite book from her before this book came out, and that was Betting on You. And that was, excuse me, I think she had actually released 3 books last year that I almost feel like this book was very rushed. And I do think it is nice that she wrote this book for the fans. And I'm not saying like that other people didn't like this book, but honestly, I was seeing so many negative reviews about this book before it came out, but I still wanted to read it because, like I said, I loved Betting on You, that I really wanted to see if I was still going to enjoy this, and I hated it. I hated this book. It was just the fact that even though some people did say that they were disappointed by this book, what I don't understand is the fact that they didn't point out Wes's manipulative, stalkerish behavior in this book. It was pretty fucking bizarre, honestly. Like, and most people say with this book, it's a lot more mature and they're college kids. And I was like, I had absolutely no problem with trying to see how their relationship matured and everything. But this book starts out with them being broken up. And everybody was, like, kind of upset about that. They were like, they wanted to see, like, how their relationship evolved and, like, what was going on. And, you know, the conflicts they were going through as being older in college. And I just feel like, and this book had a lot more of a serious tone to it than the first one. But it was almost taking itself a little bit too seriously, because and not to say that a YA can't take itself seriously and cover more serious, triggering topics. I mean, hello, look at Boys of Tommen. I'm pretty sure that's an upper YA series. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or I think it started out as YA and then slowly became more mature as it went on. But I just was so beyond bored reading this book. And even, like, the parts that were like a build up to like maybe some moments between Wes and Liz were just so forced, and the humor was just so cringe in it. I didn't laugh at freaking anything in this book. And also, what I was saying about Wes's behavior, and even though, like I said, the YouTubers that I watched, some of them were disappointed, but some of them also said that that they loved Wes in this book, and that Liz was the one that was annoying. And it's like, I honestly felt really bad for Liz in this book, because one, he makes up cheating on her in order to break up with her, because he said he couldn't handle being in a relationship. That's all you have to say. Why would you make up cheating on her? Because they were long distance after they went to college. And in the first book, Liz had lost her mother. But then in the second book, Wes lost his father. And I thought, like, the reason why Wes was, like, upset about it was because there was, like, a long string of, like, trauma maybe with his father and stuff. And again, I feel like that would have added a lot more to the story. But also, like, if that's, like, too triggering of a topic to be in a YA, then I understand if it wasn't. But, like, there's, like, this one line that bothered me so much that he said to Liz. And he said, you don't know, I think it was, you don't know what it's like to lose a parent or something like that. And I'm like, is he totally disregarding the fact that Liz lost her mother in the first book? I was like, what? And I think he was, like, super drunk when he said this. And also, when he made up that he cheated on her, to break up with her, was just so messed up. And the fact that, I don't know, I love Larry Reed so much, but the fact that she thought this book was 5 stars is honestly pretty shocking to me, because I really, and like I've said before, I really do enjoy Lynn Painter's books. I've really liked every other book before this. So, I even liked Happily Never After more than this book, because it was fun, it made me laugh, it was a good book for the moment. It's not something I really think about, but it was fun. But this book was just, there was so many problems with Wes's behavior, and then when he decides to give Liz time to see whether or not she's gonna be decide to be back with him, because now all of a sudden Wes wants to be back with her after he, like, you know, made her feel like shit, and then finally told her that I never cheated on you. He now, like, can't even let her make her own decision on whether or not she wants to be back with him. And then all of a sudden they kiss, like, 300 pages in, and then he makes this bet, like, that he wants to he makes it his mission, basically, to be back with her in almost like a stalkerish kind of way. And he makes, like, jokes about it, too. And I'm like, this is, like, honestly really problematic behavior for him. And honestly, it's a little bit toxic. So, like, I get, like, dark romances if they're like that. But, like, even Lights Out was, like, a comical way of looking at it. Obviously, like, this probably would never happen in real life, and it's almost too absurd. But, like, with this book, the magic of Better Than the Movies, and the reason why it was such a well-loved book, is because of the comparisons of, like, movies, and saying, like, life is better than the movies, you know? Not everything is a fantasy, and you kind of, like, you know, still loved, like, that Liz was kind of living in that world and thinking that everything was like a movie, but also it was there was a lot of real life issues that they dealt with in that book. And that's why it just worked so much better. Like, there was still a lot of serious topics that Better Than the Movies covered, but they did it in a way where, like, there was some humor, but also there was some, like, dramatic things that happened. So, like, I don't know. This book was just, I'm sorry, but it had no redeeming qualities to me after I read it. And I was, like, really surprised that this was written by Lynn Painter, because she has wrote a little bit of problematic characters in the past with, like, The Do-Over and Better Than the Movies, but it was not, like, that made me dislike a little bit of their behavior in it. But in this one, it was like everybody was so excited to get back to Liz and Wes, and the fact that this was so disappointing was just, it was really, really just unfortunate. So let's go on to more books. Those were really the only 2 books that I was going to rant about. And then the rest of these, I was just going to cover really quick on why I didn't like them. Okay, actually, there's two or three more books I'm going to rant about, but not as much as the other 2. Those were just, like, my least favorite books of the entire year. I really did not like them. So next up is Reckless. And we're going to talk about that by Lauren Roberts, and this is the follow-up to Powerless, and everybody was so excited for this book, including myself, because I freaking love Powerless, okay? It's so much fun, and I think the first book was just such a fun time that I was really excited for this book, and it was one of my most anticipated reads of 2024, and it was just, like, such a letdown, because, like, it wasn't really... And, like, a lot of, like, YouTubers that I watch do agree that this book was kind of a letdown. And they said, like, it had its moments. And I totally agree with that. But a lot of this book was straight up, excuse me, I'm burping, filler. And it was just, like, too much repetitiveness of, like, the same thing. And that's pretty much it. That's all I'm really going to say about it. So it is a second book in a series, and I don't want to ruin, like, your experience with it. If you loved it, good for you. But for me, it took me, I think, like 4 days to finish this book, and I honestly didn't even want to pick it up again. But everybody was talking about, like, the twist at the ending, and I was so excited for it. And then I was like, the ending was good. And, like, again, there's some quotes in this book that are great, and I still loved Peyton and Kai's banter and everything, but... Is there anything left in here? Because, like, I always feel like the pump gets caught all the time. Let's just see. Because if there's not, I'm going to have to grab another foundation. There we go. It comes out in, like, spurts, pretty much. Oh my lord. Alright, let's see if that's enough. It should be enough, hopefully. But basically, it just was kind of boring. And what I've said about this book constantly is that I felt like this book and Powerful, the novella, which I thought the novella was better than this book. But also I feel like these books just don't have enough magic and fantasy in them. And that's also disappointing as well. And also there was just so much buildup with the romance in here. And it's not like I didn't enjoy that because it was fun. And I really loved the opening of this book and the ending of this book. Like I said, just the middle part was just a lot of repetitiveness of them just, like, pining for each other. Which, again, was fun. But, like, I just felt like it was a little bit too long. And also, Powerful could have worked so well if, like, the flashbacks of Powerful were in... I mean, Reckless could have worked better if the flashbacks in Powerful were in Reckless. And I feel like if every other chapter was, like, from Peyton's best friend's perspective and then go back into the present with Peyton and Kai, I feel like that would have been a lot more fun. An unpopular opinion, but I have seen quite a few people say this, was that Kit's perspective in the second book was the most interesting part to me, to see his struggles of being king without his brother, or like he's questioning like his brother's loyalty to him. So again, there were good and bad parts of this book, but overall it was a letdown from the first book. Okay, and then the next one I'm going to talk about is probably the book that is everybody is surprised that I really didn't like this book that much, and I think it's way overhyped, is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. I actually just got bored reading this. I didn't think it was anything special, anything new, and like everybody was making it sound like it was like such a unique concept, when I'm sure like a witch and a witch hunter have fallen in love in other books before, but they're like, oh my god, it's about a witch and a witch hunter and they fall in love. And I'm like, I'm not saying this book was bad, but it definitely didn't meet my expectations like everybody else was hyping it up to be. And I expected to be like obsessed with this book when I read it. I think I gave it a 3.75, which is a higher rating than Reckless and the other two books I talked about, because there were elements of this that I really enjoyed. But I think what pissed me off the most about this book was how dumb the female character was. And I'm sorry, but we're talking about fictional people. So if I'm going to say dumb, it shouldn't be offending anyone, because it's not like I'm talking about a real person. Obviously, I wouldn't do that if I was talking about a real person, unless they're like a celebrity that did like dumb shit. But anyway, she was supposed to be like this huge, you know, witch assassin that was killing like humans and blah, blah, blah. But then like some of the things that she does in this book is so dumb. And I'm like, why is she making all these dumbass decisions? And I did see that one or two people did say this, and they're like, why is it she's making these super obvious decisions if she's supposed to be like this huge witch killer? And maybe she's not, but at the same time, even if she's not, they were still pretty stupid. So that pissed me off. And also the other thing about this book that I actually found just extremely boring was the characters' trauma bonding in this book. And I know that, like, you know, I'm all for Boys of... Again, I compare all trauma to Boys of Tommen, because that's, like, probably the most traumatic series I've ever read. And the way that, you know, she balances the trauma and the humors in the books, like I've said, are actually, like, genius to me. I think they're amazing. But, with this, I just feel like the characters had too many problems, and it got a little bit too repetitive for me to actually really care. And, like, you know, when they were talking about their childhoods and stuff before that, like, I was interested, I was curious about it, but then I felt like there was just problem after problem after problem after problem, and I'm like, okay, this is getting a little bit boring now. And also at the end of this book, I felt like it was very copycat-y of what happened to Manon in Queen of Shadows. I really wasn't shocked by it. I was like, oh, okay, they save a witch from the stake. Wow, groundbreaking. I just, like, wasn't really that impressed. So, I don't know. There were good things about this book, though. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was okay. I wasn't obsessed with it like everybody else said. And my friend on YouTube, Monica Fortner, I love her. Go check out her channel. She said that she was close to putting this book down and just DNFing it at first, and then she picked it back up, and then she thought that she really liked it. And for me, this is just a thing. If you have to put the book down because you're not enjoying it, put it down, you know? And I think for me this year, I might actually start DNFing books that I don't enjoy. But honestly, I think I have a lot of great reads here on my 2025 TBR that I think I'm going to be more excited and more into these reads than I was with the reads that I read last year. Because I think last year I was discovering a lot of like authors that I enjoy and styles of writing that I enjoy more, that I think I'm going to have a better reading year. But who knows? Who knows? I might be full of shit, but it is what it is. Okay. I didn't realize like how long I was going to be talking about these books. So the next book I wanted to talk about was Throne of Secrets. This book was so disappointing to me because you guys know how much I freaking adore Throne of the Fallen. And again, it's like my favorite book from this author was the previous book that I had read from her and was her previous release. I just realized that with this book as well. What a genius. But it was just so beyond disappointing because you guys know Throne of the Fallen is a 6-star read for me. That's like one of my all-time favorite romantasy reads. That this book would just fell so short of how good the first book was that it was almost like a lot of people complained about this, and I don't think they're wrong, is that there was almost too much smut in this book. And yes, it's a romantasy, but I felt like the smut was just overtaking the plot of this book way too much. And yes, Prince Gluttony can indulge in, overindulge in a lot of things. But I wanted to see, like, how he overindulged in, like, other aspects of, like, his sin. And the thing about Throne of the Fallen that made it so interesting was the fact that the main female character, Camilla, right? Not Camellia. She's not a chameleon, Caitlin. Balanced Envy's sin. I just felt like with this book, like the pacing was really slow, even though this book was significantly shorter. And I also thought I was a little bit nervous about that. It was shorter, but a lot of people did feel the same way. I really didn't see many people give this book 5 stars unless like somebody got an ARC review and they're like, oh my God, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I feel like people say that because they got paid or because they're trying to hype up a book before it comes out. And honestly, whatever, you do you. But for me, a lot of the reviews that I saw of this book they were pretty disappointed. And I'd have to agree with everyone. It was such a letdown. Okay. But the beauty of Throne of the Fallen was, the balance between the romance and the fantasy was absolute perfection. And it was one of my favorite reads of 2024. Okay, next up is The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden, and this was the 3rd book in the Housemaid trilogy. This was a letdown, but like I kind of feel like this a lot with a lot of Frida McFadden's books at this point. I don't really take her books seriously anymore, and so many people are like upset with her. Main female character, Millie, and also like just some of her female main characters in her books in general are just pretty dumb. And a lot of people are like, are you gonna like keep on making the female main characters like this stupid? Like, it's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, for me, I just don't take her books seriously anymore, and I'm just gonna have a good old entertaining time because they're just so absurd. I mean, like, it's a thriller, and I feel like she's almost making fun of herself with doing this, but also, like, it is getting to be a little bit annoying, and also people are like, can, like, the housemaid, craze kind of end? And I'm not saying, like, she shouldn't have all the success with The Housemaid, because I loved The Housemaid. I love that book. It's my 2nd favorite book from her. But there is a point where certain things need to kind of just die. Like, a lot of people feel like she's just milking this at this point. And anyway, in the 3rd book, the twist was just dumb. Really, really, really dumb. But the first 100 pages, I feel like this with most Rita McFadden books now, is that either the first 100 pages or like the first half of the book actually creeps me out. And then, like, the second half of the books just kind of let me down. So I felt like that with Do Not Disturb. I felt like that with The Teacher. I felt like that with The Housemaid is Watching. So it is what it is. I'm not even going to go into it more because, again, it is a 3rd book in a series. And if you were interested in reading this, I don't want to spoil anything. But it just, like, it was just okay. Then next up is Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and this was actually my first book from Ali Hazelwood, and I was really excited for it because I was like, maybe I'll, you know, like this. I really wanted to see what all the hype was about Ali Hazelwood, and honestly, this is my least favorite book from her. But the thing with Ali Hazelwood is that I want to like her books. And I feel like I've been having like the opposite experience with her books when each book that I read from her, I've been liking more and more and more. When I have the complete opposite, when I had the complete opposite experience about Riley Sager. But even if I read Bride as my third book from her, as opposed to the other two books that I read after this, I feel like I still wouldn't give up on her books. Because with romance books, I feel like they can just get better, you know? I don't know. But anyway, this book it was just boring to me. It was just boring. I didn't completely, like, hate it, but I feel like I should have DNF'd it because, like I said about Frida's book, is that I really enjoyed the first 100 pages of this. I was laughing. I was really interested in the politics in this. I was interested in the story. And then past 100 pages, I just found myself really not caring, and I was just bored. And I know, like, a lot of people liked this book, but also quite a few people, oh my god, excuse me, quite a few people that watch YouTube, that I watch on YouTube did not like this book either. And honestly, like, I feel like some authors, like, yes, it's fun to experiment, but also, like, I feel like she should just stick to what she knows, because I just didn't really enjoy this. But also, I am excited for her new release, which is called Deep End. But also, I'm excited for that because it's like, it's still like in her realm of expertise, because I really, again, have been enjoying mostly every other book from Ali Hazelwood that I've read. Like, I read Check and Mate after that, and then I read, which was okay. I enjoyed it. I just thought that the main female character was really annoying. And then I really liked The Love Hypothesis, and Cruel Winter with You, which was the short story that I read from her. So again, I feel like the more books I read from her, the more books I'm gonna like from her. But I don't know if she's one of my favorite authors. So, again, this book was just kind of just boring and a letdown, but it is what it is. Then next up, I wanted to talk about, these are not in any specific order, The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Oh my god, you guys. This was the book that literally took me the longest to get through. And I think the reason why I couldn't get through this book is because, one, I was distracted by new releases, but two, it was just so long. It was so long for a romance. I'm like, why is this book 430 fucking pages? Like, I feel like this book could have been edited down at least 100 pages. Like, we didn't need 200 pages of building up to the trip that happened. I'm like, can we get to the trip already? And then it was like, even when we were at the trip where they go to Spain, so basically the two main characters have to fake date in order to go to Spain. Because she needs to make her family believe that she has a boyfriend, because she doesn't want to look bad going to her sister's wedding. I think it's her sister's wedding. And she's like marrying her, no. I think her ex-boyfriend is like in the bridal party, or the groomsmen, not the bridal party, you idiot. Oh my god, I've been in 2 bridal parties before, and I say fucking bridal party. But anyway, so it just was so slow, and then, like, I put this book down for, like, 2 weeks, because I ended up reading, like, I think almost 8 books since I had put the book down, and honestly, I was really determining to DNF it, But then I got my Spotify listening hours back, and the only way I finished this book was listening to the majority of it on audio. I was just getting so beyond bored and frustrated with the physical book. And, like, I just felt like even when it got up to the smut, I just did not care anymore. I'm like, I want this book to end. So let me just grab my blush and my highlight and we'll talk about a couple more books. And I guess we're going to have to talk about more later because I have to leave soon. Okay, so hey guys, so I wanted to talk about the rest of the disappointing reads of 2024. I know it's a different day, but I just didn't have enough time to talk about the rest of them when I made that original video. So next up, the one I wanted to talk about was Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. And this was actually my birthday read. I was like really excited to read something about dragons, and I thought that this was going to be like similar to like Song of Silver Flame Like Night with like that high fantasy kind of element. And honestly, I was just feeling very bored when I was reading this. There was still really good elements of this. I still haven't read the other like kind of loosely based Mulan retelling that I have, because this one was supposed to be kind of influenced by Mulan as well, but I don't really care that much about I couldn't really care that much about this book. But again, this book had its moments, and it wasn't like one of the worst books that I've read. It just didn't really meet my expectations because I was so excited for dragons and stuff, and then to find out that the dragons like weren't really magical, it was just like I kind of felt like a little bit hoodwinked, even though this was supposed to be like more of a kind of almost cyberpunk kind of way to put a spin on dragons and Asian fantasy. But like honestly, I wouldn't even call this a fantasy because there's really no like magical elements in this. There was like legends of like dragons and stuff, and then they turn out that it's not really what it seems you think it is. So, but not in a good way. There like wasn't enough of like a sense of mystery to it for me to really be like so shocked and wowed by like how this author was portraying the dragon. So just it was kind of a letdown. I already gave the book away last year. But I shouldn't have sold those two hardcovers to the bookstore that I did, because I sold Heartless Hunter and Of Jade and Dragons, and those books were like both $20 when I bought them. But I don't know, like for me with books, it's not as much of a waste of money giving them away than it is with like other things in my life. Like when I would give away clothing, like with books, it's different. Like I just want somebody else to experience it, and that's not a waste if that person like enjoys it, you know? I don't know. It's just like fun to see like what kind of journey books go on. I wish we could know that about like every single book and like who ends up reading the one that you read, you know? But anyway, didn't really love it. I binged it, I think, the day after my birthday. I read like quite a bit of it before I had to get ready to go out for my birthday. And then I binged, I think, like over 200 pages of it the next day, because honestly, I didn't really want to waste any more time on it and like, you know, read it for like 3 days. And honestly, maybe that's why I didn't like it that much. But again, I still wasn't really that wowed by it. Okay. Next up is Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. And I know some people are going to be surprised by me saying this, but there was just like some things in this book that were so much fun. And once the action picked up, I had such a great time. But there was a lot of like lulling when the two main characters were stuck on the boat together. That was almost for like 100 pages or more, and it just felt like it was a little bit too long, even though like the characters were kind of having forced proximity at that point, and then that way they spent more time together and stuff. But it kind of sucked when, like, both of them, like, they, like, didn't really prepare for this journey because they didn't have food, they didn't have water, they were stuck in the middle of the ocean for, like, weeks. And they started to get, like, delusional and stuff. But anyway, there was still some really cool things about this book. But, like, the betrayal and stuff that happened at the end, it was shocking to me, but it wasn't, like, the most jaw-dropping, crazy plot twist that everyone is, like, raving about. It's, like, the same thing with, like, Reckless, where it's, like, okay. But, like, even the Reckless one, I feel like I was a little bit more shocked by. But the fact that we had all that filler all the way up till the ending was what made that book disappointing. But it's like, for me, like, the whole book has to be good in order for me to rate it, like, higher than, like, 3 stars or, like, 4 stars. It's like, I loved certain elements of this, or I really loved the book in its entirety. I just didn't get, like, that 5-star feeling. But, and then, it just, like, was a lot of build-up, and again, there was certain parts of this where the action really picked up, and it was really fun, but there was also some parts of it that kind of felt a little bit juvenile, and also I wasn't really in love with the romance parts. I thought, I kind of compared this and Quicksilver a lot, because I feel like they're some of the most hyped romantic books right now. But I've said this time and time again that Quicksilver deserves all the hype. It's fantastic. I had the time of my life when I was reading that book. And there was just so many things that were better balanced in that than this one. But I'm still very intrigued to continue the series. I do want to see what happens next. I feel like this series could improve so much with the second book. So I'm definitely going to stick with it. It didn't, like, upset me enough to not continue it. And obviously I'm going to finish Powerless as well. And of Jade and Dragons, I'm going to read the second book, which is called The Blood Phoenix. So all of these books didn't turn me off too much to not continue the series. But Encyclopedia of Fairies did, so hold on one second. Okay, the next book I wanted to talk about is Primetime Romance by Kate Robb. This was very disappointing because the first book that I read from her was This Spells Love, and I think that's the only book that she has, if I'm not mistaken, and I loved that book. I gave that book a 5 stars, so I was really excited for her next release and her next romance release, and this book was very messy. It was spending a lot of time just trying to figure out what it wanted to be, when, like, I feel like it was trying to have that magical realism aspect like This Spells Love did, but this one was just, like, very all over the place, like, after the first 100 pages. And I felt like the same way with Bride, is that Bride was a little different because it was more like dystopian werewolf vampire kind of romance, but it couldn't really figure out what it wanted to be, and then it just ended up being boring. This wasn't boring, it just was it got, like, kind of dark. And I'm like, I read somebody's review on Goodreads that I felt like the same kind of way after I read it. They were like, it kind of got very sinister at one point, almost like thriller-esque after, like, the first 100 pages. And then when the characters did finally get together, first off, there was no chemistry between these two characters whatsoever. That, like, it almost felt like they were kind of thrown together. And then once the romance happened, it was like a 10-page smutty chapter, and that was it. That's all the romance that we got between the two characters. And it's like, again, for a romance to be successful or for a romance to be good, you have to feel that, like, underlying kind of, like, even in a slow burn kind of romance, sometimes they can get very frustrating, but you still feel that underlying tension and attraction and angst between the two main characters, that you feel like that they should finally get together. And like, with this, it's just you didn't feel any of that. So it's just very disappointing. And I feel like Kate Robb tries to be similar to Ashley Poston, but I feel like Ashley Poston does it in a better way. And her writing, even though again, This Spells Love, I feel like was just as good as like Dead Romantics and A Novel Love Story. I know I'm in the minority with a novel love story, but I really loved it. So, I don't know. I just like was not that happy with this one, and most people don't really talk about this one for a reason, because it really wasn't that great. So, unfortunately, that one didn't work out for me. Because they like get stuck in their in the main character's favorite TV show. And I do compare this a lot to A Novel Love Story, because in A Novel Love Story she gets stuck in her favorite like romance book series. So they are similar in that way, but A Novel Love Story like kept the romance going, or like the magical realism going at least. And this one was not really falling into like a fantasy-esque kind of thing. It was kind of like more like a thriller, and it was just very bizarre, the turn that it took. Okay, next up is The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Now, this is the spin-off. It's going to be a duology because the next book comes out in July. So this is the spin-off duology of the Inheritance Games series. Now, I just think that this book was so unnecessary. I feel like she should have made this a novella. Maybe just like a short, like 100-page novella. And I feel like that would have been enough for this, because like in this, I just could not care about the characters whatsoever. It wasn't the worst book I ever read. I just feel like it was totally unnecessary. And I feel like at this point, it's kind of the same thing as with like The Housemaid is Watching, is that they're kind of just writing the success of their, you know, biggest series, and I feel like it just needs to die at this point. Like, I am very seriously questioning if I want to read the second book, which is called Glorious Rivals, but I literally could not tell you a single thing about this book, because as soon as I finished it, it just left my brain completely, because it was not memorable in any way. The only reason why I wanted to read it is because, like, I thought it would just be a fun mystery adventure, like the Inheritance Games, and like I've said, I had such a fun time with that series. So I was excited to be back in this world, like with Avery and the Hawthorne brothers. But it's just like, I didn't really care about the people that were playing The Grandest Game, because this was Avery's game, where she, you know, wants to help people out that are underprivileged, and wants to help people because she has like so much damn money, you know? But she doesn't do it in like a mean kind of like, oh my god, I have so much money. But like, she wants people to like compete to, you know, better themselves and stuff. But I don't know. I just thought that it was kind of all over the place with some of the characters in this, and I just found myself not caring. So that's why, like, it's been taking me a while to pick up Games Untold, but I still think I'm going to read it this month, because it's not going to take me very long. But, like I said, I think I've grown out of this series at this point. It was the right series for me at the time, because that's when I was still, like, getting into reading to see, like, what I liked and what I didn't like. But at this point, I don't know if I'm, like, really the right age group for this anymore, because I feel like it's kind of young, even though there's a lot of mystery elements and some darker things that do happen in the Inheritance Games, but I don't know like how much of that is going to happen in Games Untold. But I did hear it was good, but I don't know if I'm going to read Glorious Rivals or not. Okay, so next up is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I know everybody's like, oh my god, Emily Henry's like the best romance writer ever, but not even every author that I love cannot write an amazing book every single time you read them. Like, you know, The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez is not her best book. For me, I think that Funny Story is actually Emily Henry's weakest book that I've read. And this is coming from somebody that absolutely loves Emily Henry's books. I love Beach Read. I love People We Meet on Vacation. I love Happy Place. I like Book Lovers. But Funny Story, I just felt like a lot of the chemistry and like bantery kind of, I mean, it was still a fun time. I still really liked it. But out of all of the Emily Henry books, I don't know if it was because I had just come off the high of reading Beach Read, and I think I also had read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, I think right before, or maybe it was right after that. And I ended up reading my 2 favorite romance reads from my 2 favorite romance authors very close together from when I read Funny Story. But I just didn't really feel like I cared that much about Daphne and Miles. And I can't believe I still remember their names. Go me. But it's just like, I just got a little bored with their romance, and I'm like, I don't know, I just didn't really like it as much. So I'll just leave it at that. I do feel like I want to reread this, though, at some point. But I probably won't read it until, like, way down the line, like maybe next year or something, after I read her next release. But I'm still going to read every book she comes out with. She's not, and I love her books. It's just, like, I felt like so many people were like, this is her best book ever, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's fine. You can think what you want. But, like, for me, it just didn't really meet my expectations. Okay, next up, I just want to stress before I talk about these 2, but I love this series, okay? I love this series. But the Magnolia Park series is a little weird to me with the Daisy Hates books, because I don't think they're as good as the Magnolia Parks books. I get kind of bored with them. So I put Daisy Hates and Daisy Hates the Great Undoing, because I've said this before so many times, and I compare it to Boys of Tommen, but the way that Jessa Hastings writes the tandem events that happen in Daisy Hates, they're just so repetitive. Like, she literally just copies and pastes the same dialogue that took place in Magnolia Parks and puts it in Daisy Hates' perspective. And it's just, like, not interesting enough for me to really care that much about Daisy Hates. I don't really, I mean, I do still like them, though, but compared to the caliber and the amazing writing of Magnolia Parks, and the fact that I just love Magnolia and BJ so much, I almost feel like Daisy Hates and Christian are kind of like a copy and paste version of Magnolia Parks and BJ, and they're kind of like a, like, just a less better version of Magnolia and BJ. And I can say this because they're all fictional characters. Again, I'm not talking about real people. But, like, it just feels like the books are unnecessary when all I want is just more Magnolia and BJ. And what I don't understand is the fact that the series is called Magnolia Parks. Why did you end Magnolia and BJ's story in the 5th book, and then we're getting 2 more Daisy Hates books? Like, what more can happen at this point? I know they're probably going to be really worth it. I was almost debating not reading them, though, because it's like, as soon as Magnolia and BJ's story is over, I'm like, what do I have left? Because I love them so much. So, I don't know. We're going to have to see, like, but I probably will end up reading them, because I will regret if I don't. But I don't really understand why she's continuing this series with Daisy Hates. I feel like it should have been, you know, the same way that she's been doing it, with one more Daisy Hates book as the 6th book, and then Magnolia and BJ's relationship should have came to a conclusion by the 7th book. So, like, but the pattern would have been, the 6th book would have been Daisy Hates and then Magnolia Parks. And then that's how you would end the series, with the 7th book being Magnolia Parks. So I didn't really understand why she ended it at that point. I feel like Into the Dark should have almost been the last book in the series, not the 5th one, but that's just my opinion. Okay, next up is A Song to Drown Rivers by Ali Lang. And Luang, it's Luang, so I think it's Anne Luang, or maybe it is Liang. Hold on, let me just make sure I'm getting that right. But anyway, this book is marketed, Anne Liang, yes, sorry, as an epic fantasy. So I thought we were going to get like some high fantasy fights happening. You know, the girl has to be the king's concubine back during that time of the whatever Asian dynasty. I can't remember which one it was. And I think it's Korean, I'm not sure. But this was like another Asian fantasy that I really wanted to read because I was, still curious about some Asian fantasies that I hadn't gotten to yet. And I ended up reading 4 last year. I read Song of Silver Flame Like Night, of Jade and Dragons, and A Song to Drown Rivers. But this was just like, the first 200 pages were kind of like angst between the two main characters, because back in those dynasty days, you couldn't really be with the man that you wanted to be with if the king ordered you to be with him, or you would fucking get killed. So, but I just didn't feel enough of the tension between the two characters. And again, I understand why, but it was almost too long to build up to when she needed to get to the king. It was like almost 170 pages in, like almost halfway into the book, until she finally gets to the king. But like, when I think about this book, I still think it was very good, but it's not a high fantasy, epic fantasy kind of book. No, it's not whatsoever. It was still very good, but oh my god, it was completely heartbreaking when I read this. It's so sad what happens to the main character towards the end. But I understand why it happened. But like, it was disappointing because it was just so, there was like no magical elements to this book either. There was no really big wars that happened in this. And I feel like when people say epic fantasy, I feel like those things kind of have to happen. So I feel like it's just mismarketed, and that's why I was disappointed in it. But I don't regret reading it. It was still a beautifully written book, but it just wasn't what I was expecting it to be whatsoever. So that's why it's disappointing. Okay. Next up, again, unpopular opinion, I don't care, because I don't think this book is the best in the series. I don't know why it's considered to be when I think that the 3rd book is way better. But it's The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. And the reason why I say that this one was disappointing is because maybe I had too high of expectations when I went into this, because I thought I was going to fucking love it like I did the first one. And then when I read the 3rd one and everybody's like, yeah, Curse for True Love is the worst in the series, I actually think this one is. It's actually my least favorite Stephanie Garber book out of the 6 books in the whole Caraval Once Upon a Broken Heart universe. I hope she finally, I don't even know what she's going to be writing after this, but the fact that I read both of her trilogies last year is crazy to me. But they're so fast paced and they're so easy to read. That it doesn't feel like work when I'm reading her books. You can just immerse yourself in her world, and it's just so, I just love the magicalness of her writing. But with this, again, I felt like it took way too long to get to the actual plot, because I felt like we didn't get there until, again, halfway through the book. And then once we got there, things were really picking up, and I was having such a great time with it. But I don't think it deserves a super high rating like everybody says. but I still think it was very good. Like, this book isn't bad whatsoever. It's just, again, Jesus Christ. A simple fact that it didn't really meet my expectations like everybody else. Like, Daisy Hates, A Song to Drown Rivers, The Ballad of Never After, Metal Slinger. Like, they're more disappointing because I thought that they were going to be better than I actually thought they were. So, it is what it is. And then the last book on this list is Crescent City. Now, and this is specifically the first book because so far I've only been reading the first book, and it's by Sarah J. Maas. And this was the only series that I had to say that I have read Sarah J. Maas's entire backlist. And the first book is called House of Earth and Blood. Now, I've heard so many mixed reviews about Crescent City, but I'm like, it's Sarah J. Maas. I love Sarah J. Maas. I want to see what I'm missing. I want to see if I like it or not. And I'm just getting so damn bored with it. And like, I feel like these books are just way too long. And most people did say you just have to get to the end of the second book. And people say that the second book is the best book in the series. But they also said that it took a while to get there because these books are like 800 pages. And I feel like these books could have been massively edited down. And I feel like I'm going to feel the same way about the second book when I actually eventually get to it. But the fact that it's taking me so much motivation to start listening to these books again, because I'm listening to the audiobooks and I keep on having to put it down. And now I've gotten halfway through another audiobook that I'm enjoying way more. Because sometimes books are unnecessarily long for no reason. Like, but a lot of people say, you know, these books were kind of messy. They didn't really meet their expectations, like Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. And this is coming from someone that absolutely loves Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. So again, I love her writing. I love her series. But, I really haven't felt this way with a first book from Sarah J. Maas as compared to, like, towards the ends of series with Sarah J. Maas. Because, you know, like, towards the end of Throne of Glass, we have Tower of Dawn, and that's definitely my least favorite book in the series. And then with After A Court of Wings and Ruin, I'm not really a huge fan of A Court of Silver Flames. I didn't really care about it as much as the first three, which are, like, my whole life. I love those books so much. And A Court of Frost and Starlight, it was just a fun time. But it's not really that necessary to be, like, part of the series. It could have just been, like, a little holiday novella, which that's what it is. But it almost feels like you're reading Spectacular reading A Court of Frost and Starlight. Like, it was just weird. Like, there's some parts of, like, Sarah J. Maas's series where, like, they take like, a weird, unnecessary turn. But I feel like with this, I only have 6 hours left in this, but it's been taking me so long to be motivated to go back and listen to it that I don't even know if it's worth listening to the other two books. But I paid for the other two books because I got them during Audible's, like, huge Black Friday sale, so they only costed me $5.99 each. And that's, like, the best time to pick up audiobooks from Audible. So, I'm just, like, wondering whether it's worth it or not. Like, something crazy happened, you know, fucking, like, 3 hours in. But after that, I just don't find myself caring. I keep on zoning out every time I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, which character is this? Do I really care? Not really. But I'm probably going to finish the series, but I feel like it's going to take me quite a long time. So, it is what it is. I have to go because I need to get ready for work. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at CBW819 and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. I don't even feel like going to work today. It's so windy out. It's so cold. I hate it. Boo. And let me know what your most disappointing read was for 2024. I really would like to know. Did you read any of these? Do you feel the same way? Or did you love any of these books? I really would love to know. So I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.